Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are continuing with our organic chemistry series. We are looking at naming. We did do naming in the last lesson, but we will look at one or two more complex examples in this lesson. Just to recap again, first we have to find the longest chain and identify whether the prefix will be meth, eth, prop. We did this before. Just to recap again, if you look at the homology series, we must see if there's one carbon, then the prefix will be meth. If there's two carbons, it will be eth. If there's three carbons, it will be prop. Four carbons will be but or but. Five carbons in the line will be pent. Six will be hex. Seven carbons will be hept, and eight carbons will be oct. So that's important. We must first identify the prefix by seeing how many carbons in the longest chain. Then we must choose the suffix, that is the ending. Will it have if it has a single bond or double bond or triple bond, then the single bond will have the ending, the the suffix will be ain. If it has a double bond, it will be in. If it has a triple bond, the ending, which we call the suffix, will be ein. Then also, if there are if there's a double bond O in the middle of the carbon chain, then the suffix will be own. Or if there's a double bond O at the end, then the suffix will be L. And if there's a double bond O, single bond OH, then the suffix will be oic acid. And again there, we did this, we just recap. If you have an OH at the end, then your suffix will be all, alcohol, ethanol, carbonyl group. If you have a C double bond O group, that will be ketone or an aldehyde, depending. And then if you have this here, double bond O, single bond OH, then it will be a carboxylic acid. And we looked at some examples. Furthermore, we must notice that we have to start naming from the double and triple bond attachments. So you start naming from them and you move away from them. We will look at an example shortly. And then you must see if there is other attachment after it. If there's a halogen attachments or methyl branches, then you put those in as well. And then you must name the whole compound in alphabetical order. So those are the rules that we need to know. Now let's take one example at a time. Here we have an example where we must first identify the longest chain. So if you look at the longest chain must contain a double bond. It can be 1, 2, 3, 4. You could have even had the 4 there on the top. It comes to the same thing, but we leave it in a straight line for simplification purposes. So we see that we have 4 carbons in the line, and if we know our rules and we have 4 carbons in the line, we see that if we have 4 carbons, then the prefix must be but. So we've got our prefix as but, and then so we know that our prefix is but. And then we see we've got a double bond, and you must start naming from the double bond. So it gives us the ene. So we've got but and we've got ene, and importantly we've got the double bond on the first carbon. So it's but 1 ene, and then we see that we've got this attachment here. If you look here, we've got this attachment. This is a CH3 attachment, and the CH3 attachment is on the third carbon. So we should remember that as well. So we've got 3 methyl. On the third carbon, we've got a methyl attachment. So if we have to name this now, we have to put all this together. We end up with 3 methyl, 1 butene, or 3 methyl, but 1 ene. So whichever way you want to say it, I prefer saying it the first way, but those are the IUPAC names, the rules for the IUPAC naming of this compound. So that's the first one. Now let's take a second one. Another example. Here again we must identify the longest chain, and we must start naming from the double bond attachments, or in this case you see that we've got a C double bond O a carbonyl attachment, and it's at the end, so this becomes an aldehyde. So if we count the carbons in the line, we'll have to start from here, and we see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons in the line. So that gives us hex, the name hex. And then on the fourth carbon we have a CH3, which is your methyl attachment, and on your first carbon we've got a carbonyl attachment, and because it's at the end it makes us an aldehyde. So let's see what we have. We've got hexane L, we've got L, hexanal, and we've got 4-methyl. And then the aldehyde is on the first carbon, so it's hexane 1L, 1 or 1-hexanal, and we've got our 4-methyl attachments. So if we name it, this is how we'll name it. 4-methyl 1-hexanal or 4-methyl hex 1L. And we could put the dash here in case if we are not sure, we can just put the methyl hexane 1L. So that's the way we will name this compound. So although it looks very complicated, if we identify the pieces here, we have a carbonyl group and a methyl group, it becomes easy to identify how to name this compound. Let us do just one more example. Now we have this one here. There seems to be lots of carbons, but let's just break it up into pieces. We see we've got how many carbons? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 carbons in a line. If you have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the longest chain is 7. So we need hept. So we have hept as our longest chain. And then we must start naming from the double bond. The carbonyl group must be part of the longest chain. And we see that the carbonyl group is on the third carbon. Because if we name from the left hand side, it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The carbonyl group will only be on the fourth carbon, so we must have it as low as possible in terms of numbering. So the third carbon will have a carbonyl group. So it's 3-one. We've got our 3-one, and then on a fourth carbon we've got C2H5 attachment, which is your ethyl attachment, as we mentioned earlier. Just to recap, C2H5 is your ethyl attachment. And going further, let's see what we have. So we've got hept, we've got the third carbon's got a ketone attachment to it. We've got on the fourth carbon we've got an ethyl attachment. On the fifth carbon we've got a methyl attachment, the CH3 attachment. On this carbon here we have this CH3 attachment. So if we have to name this compound now, we have to put all these together, and it must be in alphabetical order. So E comes before M. So E will be first. So it will be 4-ethyl, 5-methyl, hept, 3-one. So this is what we have: 4-ethyl, 5-methyl, 3-heptane-one, or 3-heptane-1-one. You could name it that way as well. That's another way of saying it. So these are some of the examples, the way of naming that we can have. In this case, I didn't do an example where you have hydrogen attachments, but these are simplified forms of naming, and as long as you take it piece by piece, it wouldn't be an issue. Thank you very much.